Can you hear me okay? There we are. One thing I have learned in my faith walk is that walking in faith can have a ripple effect. You'll see what I mean in a few minutes. But first, one needs to have faith to walk by faith. I did not have faith for many years. Oh, sure, I went to Catholic school for 9 years. I'm sure the nuns were glad to see me go after 9 years, having gone through third grade twice, had my knuckles smacked on numerous occasions, and spent many days in the principal's office during recess. I was a handful, to say the least. I don't remember opening up a Bible during Catholic school, but perhaps I did. After graduating from public high school, I did not attend church except for weddings and funerals. You know the type, right? Fast forward to when I'm 47 years old. Are we good? No, we're good. Okay, there we are. After graduating from public high school, I did not attend church except for weddings and funerals. You know the type. Fast forward to when I'm 47 years old. I'm going along through life, working, investing in real estate, making money, thinking that is the purpose we are here on earth for. Then the Twin Towers are hit in New York on 9/11. We were all shaken. I did not know what to think except sadness and revenge. On September 14th, 3 days after the attack, I was driving the company vehicle on my route to the town of Sonoma. I was dial surfing the radio. By chance, or was it by chance, I came across the National Memorial Service held in Washington, D.C. for the victims of the attack. It was about 9 a.m. The United States National Choir had just started singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic. At that moment, I had to pull over to the side of the road. I wept for a long time, loud and with anguish. Looking back, I can only think that my brokenness was revealed to me. At that moment, it seemed like the meaningless of my life was being shown to me. That day on the road to Sonoma was really my road to Damascus. On returning home that day, I said to Marty, we need to go to church. We became seekers that day. After a few Sundays of going to different churches, we ended up at St. Mark Lutheran Church in Santa Rosa, California, where we learned what it means to be a Christian. We had Bible study every Sunday, and we had Bible study on Thursday nights also at Gary's home. Gary took us under his wing. Over time, we learned about forgiveness and the two most important commandments. 1, love the Lord your God with your whole heart. And 2, love your neighbor. Because out of those 2 commandments, everything else follows. I learned we are to use our gifts and talents to God's ends. In 1 Corinthians, Paul writes, there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. Also, Paul wrote in Galatians 5, for you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. We're going to fast forward 14 years. We now live in Spokane. This is where 10 Talent Ministry comes in. By faith, having heard the story of Don Comey mentoring a Muslim refugee to the point of this refugee being baptized here at Holy Cross, I thought, how can God use me to impact refugees coming to Spokane? What gifts and talents do I possess? My background in real estate investing and the ability to build and fix things around the house was the answer. By faith, instead of using my gifts and talents for me, I would use them for others. With the help of Don Comey and Jerry Hansen, we came up with an operating agreement for a LLC, a limited liability company. We would pool resources from different investors, purchase rental housing, and rent to refugees that come to Spokane through World Relief at a below-market rate. This would make it easier for the refugee families to establish themselves here. We then would come alongside our tenants and show them the love of Christ. Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 11, "Ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, even in 8, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land." I think Solomon was summarizing that life includes both risk and opportunity, and to go forward in the name of God. We started 10 Talent Ministries in July of 2015 with 14 investors. We purchased our first duplex with cash. We had no mortgage, so we could charge a below-market rent easily. Over time, 10 Talents grew to having 30 investors and owning 2 duplexes. 2 of our investors were refugees. 10 Talent Ministries housed refugees from Somalia, Ethiopia, the Congo, Mexico, Afghanistan. Most refugees can only get minimum wage work when they first arrive to Spokane. That means that they were paid roughly $6,000 weekly if they had full-time employment. Oftentimes, there is more than one income earner in each family. 10 Talent Ministries charged $550 at most for their 2-bedroom duplexes. Our first tenant was a Muslim man and wife with 4 children. His name was Saeed. He was from Somalia. All our tenants had a volunteer ministry person. I was Saeed's ministry person. And as his ministry person, I hired him to work with me on a number of my handyman jobs. Another member of 10 Talent Ministries took Saeed to his first ever college basketball game to see the Gonzaga men's team. My relationship grew with Saeed to the point that he called me his brother. Saeed and his family eventually had 6 children and moved on to Minnesota. I communicate with Saeed about once a year now. He is thriving in Minnesota. Another one of our 10 Talent Ministries volunteer investors was Becky Lucky. Becky agreed to work with Ikram, a Muslim man and wife with 4 kids from Afghanistan. Ikram worked with the U.S. Army for 16 years until his house was burnt down by the Taliban. His life was in danger. That is what gave him refugee status. Becky spent countless hours with the family and formed such a relationship that she was honored to hold Ikram's 5th child and be called grandma. Having coffee with the Ethiopian family in their home was a pleasure. The Ethiopian family that we housed was a family of 3, mom with 2 kids, or 2 daughters. 3 times I was invited in to have coffee with the family. Marty was with me on one of those occasions. Having traditional Ethiopian coffee seemed like an event. Mom always prepared the coffee. She sat on a little kid's chair about 10 inches off the ground with an electric hot plate that sat on a tiny table right in front of her. She then would roast the coffee beans in a clay carafe on the hot plate. The beans started smoking and become a little aromatic. She poured hot water into the carafe. After a few minutes, we were drinking very, and I mean very strong coffee. Very. My family was honored to have a 20-year-old Congolese Christian woman to Thanksgiving dinner at my son-in-law's and daughter's home, and the grandkids were with us at the time. Mushaka was her name. She'd only been in the United States for maybe a month. She was a bit frightened. She spoke no English. Imagine, you have been living in a 10 by 10 tent for years in a refugee camp, lining up for food twice a day, and you come to the U.S. and you see this abundance. I can only imagine what went through her head on that Thanksgiving day. Not always easy working with our tenants, sometimes a bit frustrating. Like being called out to come into one of the rentals because the water was not going down the drain in the bathtub. On inspection, all that was required was to flip the lever under the spigot and the water went right down. Or the time I was called out when a tenant called me and said, when I turn the water on outside, it won't come out of the hose. On arriving to the home, all that was required was to straighten out the garden hose and take the kink out of the garden hose. Now, this one really frustrated me. I was called out at 9 p.m. on a winter evening, about 20 degrees out. 22-minute drive to the home, and the tenant can't get in. My key doesn't work, so the lock is broken. 22-minute drive back to my house, grab my tools. 22-minute drive back to the unit, drill through the door lock, little hammering, and about after an hour, the tenant was back in the unit, and I was home about midnight. I personally have grown from the interactions with our tenants. I appreciate their differences, their unique ways and difficulty in coming into this country where their language is not spoken. God has taught me to have more empathy and, oh yes, more patience. Our first pastor in Santa Rosa told me and my wife to be careful about praying for patience because God would give you plenty of opportunity to learn. And, oh yes, I was given lots of opportunity. I was also given much joy through the relationships with many of our tenants. To be able to see our tenants who had nothing but the clothing on their back when they get to Spokane and pull themselves up and thrive is remarkable. The ministry of 10 talents is named after Jesus' parable of Matthew 25, where Jesus said, believing in me is like being given an investment from a master who goes away, and when he returns, the master is going to ask what we did with the investment. When the master came back to the faithful, he said, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, I will set you over much. And at the very end, Jesus said, to the one who has, more will be given. With regret, I tell you, the 10 Talent Ministries dissolved this past December for a variety of reasons. We sold both properties and dispersed a total of $520,000 to investors. Investors doubled and even tripled their investment. In Matthew 25:16, Jesus said, the man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags of gold. Now I know Jesus is talking about spiritual gain here, but I sure do see a financial component. Now here's the ripple effect I was talking about earlier. By faith, some TTM members or 10 Talent Ministries members have tithed all or part of their gain directly to World Relief of Spokane to assist them in their mission. Also, a total of $27,000 was tithed to Luther Haven by a number of our members to purchase a new sawmill. Luther Haven's old sawmill was a bit tired. This new, larger, and faster sawmill will greatly help in the construction of Luther Haven's new 3-story housing, kitchen building, and new boat docks being constructed starting this spring. And no telling what other tithing has occurred that I'm not even aware of. Now here's the good part of the ripple effect. A few months prior to dissolving, I met with a pastor from Colbert that was interested in doing the same thing as 10 Talent Ministries. I met with him, explained how 10 Talents works and what was not working. 2 weeks later, I met again. However, this time, we met with a group of investors from his church and Mark Finney. Mark, at the time, was the executive director for World Relief of Spokane. A group of 10 Talent Ministry members were at this meeting also. We talked about how our business model operated, the 2 key areas, affordable rents and relationship building with the refugee tenants. We also talked about what gave us some difficulties. My secret hope, and it was a secret, was that they were going to buy out 10 Talent Ministries. That didn't happen. This group of investors, they were thinking bigger, way bigger. This group of investors ended up buying 13 rental units that included land to build on later. This group adopted parts of 10 Talent Ministries' business model, that being affordable rents and relationship building. Over time, they planned to build 25 more rental units, all for refugee housing. Here's more ripple effect. The now former executive director of World Relief of Spokane, Mark Finney, is in the process of starting up a new nonprofit business whose purpose is to put for-profit investors together, form LLCs, and house refugees using part of TTM's business model, mainly affordable rents and relationship building. Mark's hope and prayers are that in the future there would be many little 10 Talent Ministries all over Spokane. I am pleased how God has used us and TTM, or 10 Talent Ministries, and how TTM inspired others to go even bigger than we did. By grace, I was brought into the fold. By faith, we loved others. I think the ripple effect is apparent. Thank you.